Hey, Topping in Life's Math and History, and we are going to learn about how to simplify the square roots. So, when we begin the video, let's warm up by understanding the different squares, like 1 squared is equal to 1, 2 squared is equal to 4, 3 squared equals 9, 4 squared equals 16. 5 squared equals 25, 6 squared equals 36, 7 squared equals 49, 8 squared equals 64, 9 squared equals 81, 10 squared equals 100, 11 squared equals 121, 12 squared equals 144, 13 squared equals 169, 14 squared equals 196, and 15 squared equals 225. So, these are the squares, perfect squares, that you can actually memorize because the square means that you're multiplying the number by itself 2 times. 10 squared is the same thing as 10 times 10, or 100. If you ever relate it to geometry, we have a equals base times height as a square. Here's an example. So, we have nothing right here, but we have a line that is the length, multiply that by the width. And when we do that, we get a square. Let's check the dimensions. So 12 and 17. Let's change it to 12 and 12 to make a perfect square. Remember, when you have a square, you have dimensions that are equivalent and congruent with each other, meaning they are the same sides. Like that has to be 12 units, that has to be 12, that has to be 12, and that has to be 12. So that is the area of a square. And when you measure it with the dimensions, you usually have the same number multiplied by itself by 2.
Shh! SpongeBob, what are you doing here so late? Whatever this is...
It's going on your permanent record!
But that only happens when we try to get a bigger number. Sometimes, instead of having the smaller numbers, and you have only the bigger numbers, you want to find the smaller numbers. And that's why we are learning about square roots. Because when you look at a square root symbol, it talks about trying to find, okay, here is the square. But you are trying to find what the dimensions are, for example. That is trying to find the smaller number, the square root.
It's first grade, SpongeBob.
Patrick, I'm sorry I doubted you.
Well, all right then. Let her rip. It worked!
Oh, no!
Look! SpongeBob's giant! Can I be giant next?
Patrick, I'm not giant. You've shrunk too.
You're kidding! Good thing I still got this pickle.
So, the square root is actually the opposite of the exponent of 2. Because, let's say you have the square root of 36, for example. What multiplied by itself 2 times can help us to get 36? Well, we have 6 times 6 equals 36. So, the square root of 36 will equal 6. Let's try another one. The square root of 100, one of my favorites. Well, 10 times 10 equals 100. So that must mean the square root of 100 should be able to be 10. But what happens if we try to find the square root of 20? Well, this is a little bit strange because you can multiply numbers into 20, but you can't evenly multiply numbers by itself 2 times to get 20. like 6 times 6, or 10 times 10. With the square root of 20, we have to do a little bit of simplifying. You can't really solve it because we are not actually going to look at the exact thing, because that will end up as a long decimal. Here's an example. Imagine if we have like a long decimal, like 1.536198712 hours later, and it keeps going on and on and on. So, we are not trying to get that. The reason why we have square roots is because sometimes we get answers as numbers that are called irrational numbers that take too long to write and take forever and ever. But when we have a square root symbol, it can briefly describe what the answer and the value is. So let's start simplifying. When we simplify, we try to get two numbers that can be multiplied into 20 and find another square root. Here's an example. Imagine if we write the square root of 4 and the square root of 5, and we multiply each other. That's the same thing as saying the square root of 4, multiply that by 5. Here's the rule. If you find the square root of a and b, as a and b being both numbers, that is the same exact thing as the square root of a, multiply that by the square root of b, or the same thing as the square root of a, multiply that by b at the same time. So any method works. If you want to separate the two, it works too. If you want to keep them together, that also works. Whatever works for you to get the correct answer is going to be helpful. So let's get back to the problem. The square root of 4 multiplied the square root of 5. We have to try and get to the simplest answer as possible, because mathematicians try to keep everything simple they can. That's why we simplify the square roots instead of having an excessive long number. So, 4 and 5 as square roots, what we can do is, since that 4 is the square root of something, because we can simplify it more, 2 times 2 equals 4, we can directly pull that out. So, 2 times 2 is 4. So, we now have 2, the square root of 5. We leave the 5 there because we can't really do anything. We can't have a number that's a perfect square that's equal to 5. Like, what number and what number that's a whole number can equal to 5? We actually don't know yet because it might be a super long number. So here's our simplified answer. 2 multiplied the square root of 5. When you eliminate the square root symbol, always put it up to the front. And if you can't go anywhere else, like the square root of 5, then you stop right there and keep it in the square root sign. So pretty much, this game is a stop. Or this game is pretty much you hop till you drop. Okay, so let's solve one more problem. Let's find the square root of 32. We already know it's gonna look like some sort of answer like this one, where you have a square root symbol left over. So, the first thing we gotta acknowledge is this a perfect square? Well, is it? I don't think so. Well, we have one option that we thought of. We can do the square root of 8 and the square root of 4, because 8 times 4 is 32. But there's an alternative way, is we have the square root of 2 and the square root of 16, because 2 times 16 also equals 32. So which two sets do you think would work better? Well, the right one actually works better, because when you try to find two sets of square roots to get to your main question, you want to try to find the largest perfect square, because even though 4 is a perfect square, it's not the biggest perfect square. But if you have 16, 16 is a perfect square, because 4 times 4 equals 16. Let's do out the math. So 4 times 4 equals 16. We put the 4 on the bottom, get rid of the square root symbol, and get rid of the 16. Move that 4 to the front, and voila! 4 to the square root of 2. See how fast that we got that answer as a simplified object? Let's see what happens if we try and do it the other way. So, we have 4, we can take it out by 2. So we have 2 to the square root of 8, because you can move that 2 up forward right here. But there's another problem. The 8 has some things that are multiplied as well. So we have to expand it again. So 2 to the square root of 4 times 2, because 4 times 2 equals 8. So now we have to do another step. We can take out the 4 and put it into a 2. When we do that, we can put the 2 up here, but we already have a 2. So when we have another number that is taken away by the square root symbol, what we can do is multiply what you got as a square root into the number right before the square root. So 2 times 2 equals 4. So now this changes into a 4. The square root of 4 with 2 left over. So we got the same answer again, but when you choose two sets of square roots that are not the biggest perfect square, then you have to do a lot more steps. But if you do choose the ones with the perfect squares that are the largest, you will get an express elevator right to your answer. And that is how we simplify the square roots. Just a reminder, if we never had square roots and we just use irrational long numbers, then this is what would have happened.
Sea bears are no laughing matter. Why, once I met this guy who knew 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 this guy's cousin.
You're right! I should be more careful.
So, these videos, like SpongeBob and Nintendo, were owned by SpongeBob and Nintendo. So those videos that we showed you are not owned by our videos or our channel. I hope this video has helped you understand how to simplify the square roots. Thank you for watching Tao Ping and Life's Math Industry. Like and subscribe!